It's just an immense pleasure to be able to host our guest tonight. And this person has been in the residency since February 1st. She's a multi-talented writer and has like a crazy range of experiences. She is known for her activism and teaching and for her ability to write a perfect memo. She's a gardener and a sensuous gourmet. You can follow her on Instagram under Sensuous Gourmet, so do that as well. And she's currently collaborating on a play with a past artist in residence, Sandra Jackson Okopu. I was going to tell a joke here, but I really don't want to upstage our guest. So, Crosstown Arts and I are extremely thrilled to host our first comedian in the green room for her one-woman show, Represent. So please welcome Lucy Wang.
Hello, Memphis, and thank you, Crosstown Arts, for inviting me to perform. It's the first night of Passover, and one of the questions we always ask is, why is this night not like any other? And it's because of what Mary Jo told you. I'm the first comedian to perform in the green room, so thank you for helping me make history and helping me represent. Woohoo! Now, you may have noticed I look and am Asian American. And when you're Asian American, you only have 3 career choices: doctor, physician, and MD. That's it. Everything else, you're a loser, dead meat. You will be chopped. Now, you think if my parents really wanted me to be a doctor, they would have taken me to the doctor every now and then? But no, too expensive. You think if they really wanted me to be a doctor, they would encourage me to play doctor and tell me, you know, the human body is beautiful. But no, it was always, Lucy, go sit, go study, go practice the piano, and make sure you smile when you're practicing the piano. Like you enjoy it, you love it. Anyways, so the day the girls and the boys are parted like the Red Sea in 5th grade, I'm the only one that doesn't know I'm gonna bleed to death. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so humiliated. How could you do this to me, Ma? You want me to be a doctor? She says, oh yeah, sweetheart, I'm really sorry. There are gonna be some changes down there. You're like, down where, Mom? Down there? My mother could force us to eat unrecognizable animal body parts, right? She says the Chinese eat anything that moves. We eat everything. But do we name them? No. I said, show me, Ma, this is your chance. You want me to be a doctor? Show me. She's like, yeah, down under. I'm like, Australia? That's where the changes are gonna be? Unknowns to me at that time, she was already dreaming about Australia, and when she abandons us, that is where she's gonna move. But at that time, I didn't know, so I started, for fun, I started to call this area of my body the Land of Oz. And it made total sense to me because everything I learned about my body, I learned from Dr. Oz. Yes, Dr. Mehmet Oz, who's currently running for Pennsylvania Senate. That guy, yes. I know, boo, it was right. But one valuable piece of information I learned from him was vaginas are nature's most fabulous purses. I thought, oh my God, all that money is wasted on Kate Spade. I should have just stuck my lipstick, and my ID down there. It's like, okay, you want ID? The curb market's always asking me for ID. Okay, hold on, I'll get you ID. I know. My friend Eve, when her vagina kept talking and talking and talking, right? I was so jealous. I had to yell at my vagina. I had to say, bad Chinese girl, why don't you ever speak up? We could be on HBO. We could be famous. We could be hanging out with Jane Fonda. But no, unfortunately, Chinese vaginas don't talk. Chinese vaginas don't swear. We blush. We giggle, and we cover our mouths when we giggle, we say things like, 谢谢, thank you. 你好吗? How are you? 要不要茶? Would you like some tea? We know we're lucky to be alive. You know, unwanted Chinese girls, they're dropped off at an orphanage. Or they're, drowned at birth or buried 6 feet under. In Mandarin, the word for penis is affectionately called chi-chi. It means chirping chicken. Sounds yummy, right? Delicious. It pairs very well with the Pinot Noir. But a vagina, yin dao, the door to death and darkness in the sewer. I know, who wants to have a conversation down there? No wonder my mother never wanted to talk, right? I'm like, it ain't easy to have a conversation. And I was curious, so I called my Korean American friend. She's also very shy. I said, hey, what are the words in Korean for penis and vagina? She's like, excuse me? So I repeated the question, and she says, I can't tell you over the phone. I'm like, why not? She said, it's not safe. I said, who do you think is listening in on our conversation? Andrew Cuomo? And Donald Trump? Homeland Security? She says, okay, I'll tell you over lunch, all right? I said, all right, fine. Anybody who knows me knows I love to eat, and I love to eat for a good cause. It's like double happiness. So we decide to meet at a Vietnamese restaurant because, it's neutral territory. She's made me wait for over a week, so I'm dying to know. She says, I can't tell you too soon. It will ruin my appetite. I'm like, oh my God, what are these words that can ruin an appetite? We could be gazillionaires because everybody's going on a diet. We need a good diet craze. She makes me wait for my dessert, Korean Anatomy 101. And she says, the Korean word for penis is gochu. Spicy hot pepper. Spicy hot pepper is a staple in Korean cuisine. You go to the markets and you see shelves and shelves and shelves of spicy hot pepper. The word for vagina is bulgogi. I said, oh, is it meaty delicious like bulgogi? Because I love Korean barbecue. And she says, no, it's over there. I'm like, over there by the fish sauce? She goes, no, it means over there. I'm like, it's not even on you? That's incredible. She says, see why I can't speak? So the next thing is, I'm too curious, I can't help it. I call one of my Japanese American friends and I say, hey, I was just wondering, what is the Japanese word for vagina and penis? And she says, Lucy, you should be ashamed of yourself. I never, ever say those words. I'm not a feminist like you. And I'm like, oh my God, when does knowing your anatomy make you a feminist? I thought knowing your anatomy made you a doctor. And that's when it hit me. No wonder politicians are always trying to legislate and regulate ourselves, our bodies, and us. No wonder we have to wear pink pussy hats and march. Our language traps us. It silences us. It shames us. Our language heavily favors men. Men have seminal moments. Women, we have yeast infections. The word for balls in Japanese is kintama. It means gold, worth his weight in gold. The word for vagina is asoko. There, put that in there. I do think we have to be more like politicians and redistrict and rename, I'm thinking, as a first step, I'm gonna call my less desirable parts of my body Margaritaville. Yeah, because would you rather jiggle my fat or pinch my fat, or would you rather party in Margaritaville? Yeah, shake your salt, baby, right? Would you rather eat sea urchin gonads or uni? So whenever you give birth to a great idea, from now on, I want you to call it a vaginal moment and celebrate with uni. Yeah. No more of this crap of there, down there, over there, because there's no there. And as I know, my father told me, we did not come to America to wear pink pussy hats. No, we came to America to represent. Yeah. So that's why I'm here south, right? I have never been to Tennessee before Crosstown Arts. And when I told my friends that the first place I'm going to go after the pandemic is Memphis, Tennessee, most of my friends panicked. They're like, you can't go, you're going to die. Do you realize Tennessee is a red state? They're very conservative. You're not safe there. I said, don't worry, I'm vaccinated, I'm boosted, and I follow mask mandates. If I'm told to wear a mask, I'll wear a mask. And besides, my mother-in-law, may she rest in peace, she gave me some advice. She said, too much togetherness is a very bad thing. She said, you married him for better or for worse, but never for lunch. And I said, oh, don't worry. And they're like, Lucy, they're trying to give me in code language. You're the only Yankee, and you just told me you're the only one out of town. It's just really not, it's not safe. I said, relax. I saw Steel Magnolias. Everybody's really nice in Steel Magnolias. I know. And they said, Lucy, did you notice that there are no Asian Americans in Steel Magnolias? I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. But I already sent in my deposit. What do I do? So I'm not gonna lie. When I first got this opportunity, the first thing I did was I looked up on Google or asked Siri, how many Memphians are Asian Americans? And Siri said, 1.7%. I was like, ooh, that many. I'm like, of course I was afraid to leave the house. I rarely go anywhere alone anymore because of COVID, the gun epidemic, and the fact that crimes against Asian Americans is like 340% nationwide. So, yeah, I have been harassed and stalked as an adult, and I was bullied most of my childhood. And that's when it dawns on me, oh my gosh, I got plenty of experience. I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and I stuck out like a sore thumb. And here I am, look where I am at the crossroads of America, Memphis, Tennessee. I got this, I'm gonna survive. And you're probably, Akron, Ohio, right? People are like, yeah, the only positive role model I had growing up in Akron, Ohio was Bruce Lee. Everybody loved Bruce Lee. He commanded a lot of respect. Even white people loved Bruce Lee. Jeet Kune Do, so can you. Or yo. Be like water, be like smart water, but don't be like John Waters. Be like water, but don't make waves. Be like water off a duck. As much as I tried to memorize all of Bruce Lee's philosophical sayings and wisdom and tried to emulate him, it was very confusing because I was taught and raised that good Chinese girls, we don't put up our dukes, we wear Daisy Dukes. Yeah. And, when a bully has you pinned up against a locker, I'm not sure how to be like water, Be like water. Be shapeless. Be formless. Well, Bruce, how does this help me? This bully's gonna smash my face soon. It's like, I hear your family, your people eat dogs. I'm like, oh my gosh, do you have a dog? I sure do. Are you sure you have a dog? I mean, when was the last time you saw this dog? And the bully I caught him off guard. He lets me go. And that's when I land my punch. Your dog is not missing. And I lick my lips and I run. There's a reason I was a long-distance runner in high school, because I could run for miles and miles. I didn't enjoy it, but I had to. I wanted to live. And as soon as I could, I ran the hell away from Akron, Ohio, because Picasso had his blue period, I have my dark ages. And I ran as far as away I could, and I realized when I left that Ohio has a really, really bad rap. Midwestern girls get no respect. Have you ever noticed on all the TV shows, the movies, the girl who falls off the turnip truck and is run over? She's always from Ohio. It's like the cop and detective will be talking and say, I don't know what you would have expected. And the other cop goes, she was from Ohio. It's not her fault. She was from Ohio. She should have known better. Oh, she's from Ohio, not her fault. What was she thinking? She wasn't thinking. She's from Ohio. And you're probably wondering, well, if Ohio has such a terrible reputation, how did my family end up in Ohio? How? I know, people are like, is Akron, Ohio where you're really from? They're so disappointed. Hey, join the club. But how can it be that I'm just another kid from Ohio, like, LeBron James? And I have to blame my father on that one. It's a classic immigrant story. My father, he came to America to get a better job, a better education, and get the hell away from his family. Yes, he wanted to shine, he wanted to escape, he was convinced, he was paranoid that China was going to take over Taiwan. And you know what? He might have been ahead of his time on that. We're just going to see. But anyways, to an immigrant, he applied to 2 schools. He applied to Caltech and he applied to Kent State. And Kent State offered him a full ride scholarship. So for a poor immigrant, to him, his mind was made up. It's Ohio, we're going to be Buckeyes. But of course, he has to convince one other person, my mother. And my mother had other ideas. My mother always had other ideas. My mom's like, why don't we go to California? There's plenty of sunshine, plenty of other Asian Americans, and of course, most important, lots of good Asian food. My father says, oh, but you haven't seen snow. Snow is very pretty. Very pretty from a distance. My mother says, are you sure Caltech is in Pasadena? And Pasadena has the home of the Tournament of Champions. And have you seen the Rose Parade on New Year's Day? There's so many happy people enjoying 70-degree weather in January. Don't you want to be happy? And my father's like, you know something? Sunshine is for white people. And I think, he has a really good point there. Everybody, white people especially, are always complimenting me on my tan. They go, Lucy, where did you go on vacation? I'm like, vacation? It's called yard work. So my mother tries the final point. What about the great Chinese food of California? I bet California has everything. Dim sum, noodles in every shape and size. I bet they even have regional cuisine, Hunan, Shandong, Szechuan, and maybe even Taiwanese. Now my father's a little stumped on this one. He has to pull out a map. He has to consult it. And he's like, we'll drive to Toronto. Oh yeah, it's great. Trapped in a car for 11 hours with my parents on the weekends, yes. Every Monday, my classmates would go, hey Lucy, what'd you do this weekend? We drove to Toronto for groceries. It was a lot of fun. Ohio, it sounds like such a friendly state. Ohio! It's such a friendly state, they called us a lot of friendly names. We emigrated at the tail end of the Vietnam War, so we were gooks. Even though we were from Taiwan, America's ally, we were like, duck, duck, goo, duck, duck, goo. And then the Japanese Auto Wars came, and then we became Japs. And my AP chemistry teacher, he used to always single me out. He would say, I bet your family drives a Toyota. And I would say, with all due respect, sir, my family drives a Buick. And every time that Buick breaks down, we're damn proud to be Americans. My father worked for Goodyear. And so we always drove American cars. And we washed that car. It was our patriotic duty. Our car was our American flags. Now, my father grew up during the Japanese occupation. So when I was growing up, he would always say to me, Chinese, Japanese, big difference. But in America, at an early age, we learned in America that we are all interchangeable. Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese, Filipino, Siamese, same thing. That's a lot of pressure to try to represent all Asian Americans, now 20 million or so. But my father said, oh, it's very, very easy. All you have to do is show everybody what a hardworking and smart immigrant you are. Yeah, because America loves immigrants and smart people. Yeah. He used to say, rule number 1, be number 1. We had to solemnly swear on the unwritten Asian American handbook that we would only get A's, all A's. My, winning is not everything. It's honor to just be nominated. It's love what you do. Said no Asian American tiger parent ever. No, it's only about the A's. All A. You know what we call A- and below? We call it the Chinese F. Yeah, my parents said, you get a Chinese F, don't bother coming home that night. Build character. I hated high school. And when I went back for my 20th high school reunion, I know it was a fluke. Why do you go if you hate it? But I went there to take care of my Jewish American godmother. So I go to my reunion, and everybody knows who I am. They remember me. They're like, hey, Lucy, what you up to? Oh, what you're doing is so cool. I'm so impressed. I thought, oh my God, have I got it wrong? I called my husband. I was like, oh my God, I was so much more popular than I thought. I mean, people really, really like me. And then it hit me. Of course they knew who I was. I was either Bruce Chen or Lucy Wang. 50-50. Bruce, Lucy, Bruce, Lucy. Now, Bruce and I, we're friends now, but when we were in high school, we absolutely hated each other. We could not stand to be in the same room with each other because everybody tried to shove us together, lock us up. You're Asian American, he's Asian American, get to it. Get in this closet, we're gonna lock you up. Yeah, and then, now we're friends. But I noticed that when I, Asian, when I fly and I was single, people did the same thing. More often than not, I'd board that airplane and I'd find out I was seated to the only other Asian Americans on the plane. We'd look each other, we'd go like this, we'd roll our eyes and we'd go, oh my God, they think we're family or they want us to start a family. So they were still doing it after I got out of high school. A group us together. And then when I got married, I'm part of a mixed couple. And when you're part of a mixed couple, people don't think you belong together. And when we fly, TSA or the customs official is always like, wait, miss, wait your turn. Another step and I'm gonna call security. I'm like, wait, we're married. He looks at me and him, I hand over my documents. He looks at my rings, he goes, you're married, huh? Congratulations. When you're part of a mixed couple, other mixed couples and other non-mixed couples always approach you. They're like, hey, is it double the fun, double the pleasure? And you're like, yeah, but it's also double the work. Like today is Good Friday. It's also the first night of Passover. If I wasn't performing here, I'd be making matzo ball soup and dyeing the Easter eggs. And then Christmas and Hanukkah, it's double the expense. Okay, double the presents too, but you gotta be committed. Another question that I always get as part of a mixed couple is like, does he like Chinese food? I'm like, do I look like somebody who would marry someone who doesn't like Chinese food? Let me tell you something, hair is optional. Chinese food is not. Must love Chinese food. All right, and of course, the most popular question is, what will the children look like? Like, oh my God, they're gonna be the most beautiful children in the world, naturally. That one's the easiest question. I think if the government really wants to eradicate racism and promote racial harmony, the government should offer tax rebates to mixed couples. That's right. And the longer a mixed couple has been together, the more money you get. I mean, maybe you can't hurry love, but I think you can subsidize it. And all these people who say, oh, money can't buy happiness. Well, let me tell you, they need serious help. Those people who say money can't buy happiness, they lack imagination. And we creative types can really help them out. Just turn over your money now. We will help you. And when I mentioned that when you're a mixed couple, you attract a lot of other mixed couples. I think it's kind of like the law of attraction, and we need a support group. Well, one mixed couple said, hey, would you marry us? I know, marry the two of them, not me marry them. I know, we're from California where, anything goes, but I'm not that progressive. Anyways, for this, I didn't think I was qualified to perform any wedding ceremonies, but it turns out anything goes on the internet. A couple of clicks, a couple of bucks, you're official, you can marry people. And for this wedding ceremony, I had to perform it in 4 languages, English, Yiddish, Hebrew, and Mandarin. I had nightmares, like trying to switch back from one language to the other. I was worried that the relatives from Israel were going to condemn me for not having enough. And the relatives from China and the bride's mother even taught Mandarin. I thought she was going to ma, ma, ma. You know, I thought she was going to direct me. But it turned out I did my people proud. I did my people really, really happy. And it dawned on me that when you perform wedding ceremonies, everyone is happy to see you. In fact, one of them said, I'm the most important person. You are in a way because the party can't get started, they can't get married without you. And the reason I'm really excited about this is I read that Tennessee is considering a bill to abolish all age requirements to get married. Oh my God, this is revolutionary. Minors can marry minors, and predators can marry minors. Tennessee is a job creator state, not a volunteer state, job creator. I know, but we got to stop it. And you know what? If they don't, I know they're trying to sneak in an anti-LGBT marriage bill, but move to California. I'll marry you. Okay? I have experience. Whenever I travel somewhere where the Asian American population is tiny, people are always trying to fix me up with their one other Asian American friend. Yeah. They're like, hey, hi, you're Asian American? I'm Asian American. We're supposed to get along. Yeah, congratulations. I think I'm going to start returning the favor. I'm going to set up some of my white friends. Yeah. Oh, hey, Karen, would you like to meet Chad? When I first got to Tennessee, I had never heard of Tommy Ka. I had never seen his work. But oh my God, the day his photograph came down from the Memphis airport, my phone blew up. I had emails, texts, links, petitions from people I'd never met before, friends of friends and strangers. I'm like, why are you emailing me? Why are you targeting me? That's racial profiling. That's so racist. And then they said, but this could be you next. You got to do something. What are you going to do, Lucy? What are you going to do? I guess I'm going to represent. I dropped everything I had to do that day and the next day just to jump on the social media bandwagon, write everybody I knew, Twitter, Facebook, everything. Instagram, we gotta represent, we gotta do something, end racism, end erasure. Thank God his art, his photograph went up within a week, so I could go back to my own problems of erasure and visibility. So I could go back to calling, hey, Memphis Mafia, I need some help. Yeah, but you know, then after the success, the happy ending for Tommy Ka, people called me and said, hey, you should come back to Memphis in July when Tommy's here. You should tell him what you did, how you dropped everything to help. Because, you know, I'm sure you two have a lot in common. You two would be best friends forever because you're Asian, he's Asian, you're both at Crosstown Arts, you both represent. Well, we'll see. But, because sometimes you think that, but I was an artist in residence at a small artist residency in California. And there were 6 of us, and 2 of us were Asian American. I thought, oh, this is really cool. Yes, 2 out of 6, that's like normal. But the guy was a novelist, and the first thing he told me was, there can only be one #1 Asian. He said, we are going to have to fight for the title of top Asian. So the whole month was who represents better. And the loser is going to be chopped. And he decided, round 1, would be who is funnier and more charming with our important donors. Well, that's me, obviously. And then round 2 was who makes the best food for our fellow artists. But he did this before checking my sensuous gourmet social media posts. And then when he did, he knew he was in trouble. So he knew I had to do something, and he is smart. So what he did was he hid all the spices and all the herbs in the kitchen. It was very ugly. I hated him. But eventually, he had to apologize. And you know why? Because he needed wheels. He needed a ride. I was like, oh, I'd be very, very happy to give you a ride. I'd be very happy to drop you off where there are no other Asian Americans. How do you feel about bears? Good luck. But of course, occasionally, these blind dates, Asian with another Asian, they do lead to a love connection. The last one that was a success, it's like, I'm Asian, you're Asian, I'm about to hang up. Better luck tomorrow. And then she says, wait, I have homemade Chinese food I'd like to bring to you. I'm like, oh my God, homemade Chinese food? She goes, yeah, my friends say I'm a pretty good chef. It's like, oh, how soon can you come over? See, in my culture, food is love. We do not say, I love you. No, no, no. We say, have you eaten? And where do you want to eat? You know, some families, they have hobbies and they have family night. They play board games. They go on ski trips. They go camping. They play tennis. But my family, the only thing we ever really did was eat. Our whole world revolved around eating. You know, we went to the grocery store for fun. We played who can find the best cut of meat? Who can find the best value? Who can find the most free samples? Because if it's free, it's good. My father made it very clear. We came to America for the meat and the money. Yeah. People used to ask me, what's your beauty secret, Lucy? And I would say, it's USDA beef. When we went to an all-you-can-eat buffet, this was our tournament of champions. Oh, yeah. We had who can pile the most food on their plate and walk from the buffet to the table without dropping anything. This was our edible Jenga. We also played who can suck the most marrow out of the bone, because that's how you tell how fresh the meat is. So who got the freshest cut of meat? We also played who can eat the most without vomiting. And I have to say, I usually lost. And if the buffet was $20, we had to eat $20 worth of meat before we could touch a vegetable or a starch. No, those were the stakes. And you bet people stared at us. We're sitting there eating, piling, shoveling it in, who can eat the most. And people would look at us, their jaws would drop. And some of them were very vocal. They're like, your family sure knows how to eat. I guess people in China are really starving. You're like, we're from Taiwan, thank you very much. But, of course, I felt like a pig. I lost my appetite, I put my fork down, and then I realized, pigs are delicious. And I picked my fork back on. It did my people proud. So, in my culture as well, Chinese anatomy 101, the way to my heart is through my stomach. So, if you ever want to impress me, woo me, hook up with me, don't send me pictures of your junk. I'm not interested in that. No, send me food porn. Yes, I want you to send me dishes of the food you want to enjoy with me. Yeah. Send me some Memphis barbecue. You know, Payne's, Central, Cozy Kitchen, barbecue shop. I'm really not that picky. But don't forget the sides, you know, okra, cornbread, pickles. Yeah, shower me with culinary delights, and that'll get my undivided attention and a lifetime of romantic dinners. Some people have your back. I always have your stomach. And I have your refrigerator. I have what you call Asian refrigerator. Every nook and cranny is filled to the brim. I mean, you need health insurance before I let you open my refrigerator, because you open it and ka-tonk, something will hit your head or your foot. But don't worry, it's organic. Yeah. You know, during the pandemic, the worst of it, when groceries were flying off the shelves and I'd go in there and every shelf was empty aisle by aisle, I panicked. I felt like a kid again. I thought, oh my God. And it was like reminded me of when people used to say, Lucy, what do you want for Christmas? I want food and I want toilet paper. When the power goes out in LA, oh my God, my neighbors love me because I can feed the whole block. And they get free food, mostly organic. And I get their undying love and affection, so it's represent. But speaking of power outages, Memphis, you really rolled out the ice carpet for me. Oh yeah, worst ice storm in 15 years. That is the best dramatic entrance for a playwright ever. I was like, oh my God. I flew in the night before and I was like, oh my God, my friends are right. I'm gonna die. But then, luckily, I came to Memphis with 3 names, Carolyn, Betty, and Judy. And it turned out, Carolyn, Betty, and Judy, They all knew each other, and they know everyone who is everyone.
That's right.
That's right. I'm talking about the Memphis Mafia. Yes. They are women of achievement, and they know how to get things done. They were like, you need an extra blanket? I got you. You need a flashlight? I got you. You need a walking buddy? Yes, I do. You need a ride to the grocery store? Always, always. Grocery store, number one. But the only thing they couldn't do was find me a Super Bowl party. Yeah, I guess you can't have everything, right? But I'm happy to report Southern hospitality is real, and Steel Magnolias is real. And then I started wondering, when the power goes out in LA, nobody calls me to see if I have food. Nobody calls me to see if I need an air purifier when there's a raging wildfire. Nobody says, hey, do you need a safe place to evacuate? And I realized, sadly, the reason this happens or doesn't happen in LA is because of the traffic. LA is always 1 hour from LA. People know this, they hate this, and they blame everything on the traffic. It's a universal culprit. I'm sorry, I forgot your birthday. I was stuck on the 405. I'm sorry, I was a no-show. There was construction on the 101. I just decided, oh my, I'm gonna go to the beach instead. I'm sure you'd understand. You're like, no, I don't understand. Single people used to ask me every now and then, do you know someone that you could introduce me to, someone that I might really like? And you might shock them. You might go, actually, I do know someone that I think you would like and you'd be perfect for. And they're like, great, I'd do anything to meet this person. And you're like, she lives an hour away, or maybe 2 in traffic. Oh, forget it, I'm not that depressed, desperate or depressed. Like, you just told me you'd do anything to meet your soulmate. Anything but drive on the 405. Everywhere you go in LA, people are always discussing traffic. How long it took, how did they get there, how many accidents they caused. Yeah, I know, you see this Asian American face and you're recalculating. Not my fault, officer, I'm from Ohio. I don't know why Asian Americans have this horrible reputation of being the worst drivers ever. I mean, I represent safety. I'm a defensive driver. Seriously, I'm an excellent driver. The problem is, I just can't see. You know, it's like F-U-N. Yeah, that's the only test that I would ever kind of like to cheat on. I'd like to pretend I have 20/20 just for one day. Yes. So I knew I had to do something about this terrible stereotype, right? This terrible negative stereotype. So one day, I bought a Porsche Boxster S. Yeah, I had to represent. Actually, I was forced to represent. You know, I was trying to sell my comedy pilot, and the parking valets, they would refuse to park my car. They were like, park your own damn car, Toyota Corolla, whoa, whoa. And the studio executives, they would pull me aside, and they'd say, Lucy, we can't be seen working with you if you don't believe in yourself. You drive, you are what you drive, and you have to represent. Like, oh my God, I learned that in Hollywood, you don't need an MFA or an MBA, you need a sports car. And I wanted to sell my pilot. So I bought a Porsche Boxster S. It was a very sweet car. There was just one tiny problem. The brakes squealed, and I decided to let the brakes squeal on purpose, to represent. And this way, I could drive 30, but it sounded like I was driving 75. I wanted to give the impression, I wanted to help Asian American drivers everywhere. I wanted the world to believe that, hey, we are unsafe at any speed and dangerous at any age. We are fast and furious, number 10, 5, and 6. My car was a roving PSA. I called it the Silver Menace. Now, the Silver Menace was truly a game changer for me. I'd drive it around town, and people were always very surprised to see me behind the wheel. I'd get out at the gas station, I'd fill it up, and the guys would come up to me and say, how cute, your boyfriend let you drive his car? And I would say, if I was in a good mood, Your girlfriend let you drive that piece of crap? But if I was in a really, really good mood and I had a very clear exit, because of traffic, our whole world revolves around traffic, I would say, actually, my girlfriend lets me drive her car. Yeah. Of course, my boyfriend let me drive that car, the Porsche. It was, small. It had no GPS. And it was, he would say to me, sure, go explore. Don't worry about time. You can even go shopping afterwards. Because, you see, we had this policy. Might sound like it was great to have a husband who encourages you to go shopping. But he would say, you can buy anything if it fits in the Porsche. If it can't fit in the Porsche, if it don't fit, you got a lickety-split. Yeah, so that's, it's like, I wanted a grand piano, Steinway. He's like, oh, sure, if it could fit in the Porsche, buy it. I couldn't even shop at Costco. The jumbo toilet paper doesn't even fit in the trunk. Everybody at the grocery store knows my name because I practically lived there. I was always going back and forth, sticking by aisle 23, checking on the meat, because that's why we came to America, to check on the meat. I had to eventually sell the Porsche because, it got too expensive to maintain. And I really wanted the creature comforts of, heated seats, the rear view camera, GPS. I wanted all those things. Plus, it got really aggravating to drive with a car with the top down. In fact, I started to hate driving with the car down and top down. Why do you have a convertible if you could never drive it as a convertible, the top down? And this is because every time that I was stopped at a stoplight or a stop sign, people would try to engage me in friendly conversation. Wash your car. Your wheels are filthy. What's wrong with you? Well, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with California? We're in a drought. If I wash that car, it's $1,000 for me. I'm not going to wash that car. People think that California has no seasons. Oh, but we have seasons. Fire, drought, earthquake, mudslide. We're advised by the local authorities to always have a bag ready to pack. Be ready to evacuate at a moment's notice. But, your insurance company is like, don't put all your valuables in one bag and too close to the door. Make it very easy for the thief to come in, grab and go. It's a conundrum. Living with climate change is very, very complicated. So, of course, with all these calamities going on, and some of the insurance companies, we're not going to insure you anymore. Don't live near a fire zone. What you used to want in a house is totally, totally different. You used to want a house near the wilderness? No, not in California. That's wildfire. So, yeah, we sometimes think about where would we like to move. But the real estate market is insane. Prices are up everywhere, right? Even if you find a house that you maybe can afford. Turns out that's just a suggested price. You're supposed to bid way, way over. And sometimes your real estate agent will say, you're in a bidding war, and now to differentiate yourself, you're going to have to write a love letter to this house. You're like, that makes no sense. Isn't the owner just going to take the highest bidding price? It's like, yes, but the owner wants to feel really good about ripping you off. Yes, you're a hardworking immigrant. You lose. Goodbye. Yeah. So my time during Memphis, these 3 months, of course, I'm not only loving my time, but I'm thinking about, hey, where could I live? I love that Memphis is my favorite color, blue. I love that you have good sports teams that I can really root for. Go Grizzlies tomorrow, yeah, and go Tigers, Redbirds, yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, I also am very excited that you can drink water here. It's free and it's clean. I know, that was also one of my first questions about Memphis. We have to pay for the water in LA. So thank you, protecttheaquifer.org, for making this possible. So I'm loving the southern porches. That's so inviting. Don't shoot. I'm trying to figure out, what are the best neighborhoods? Where do the mixed couples live in Memphis? That I'd really like to know. Somebody has to do that. Top 10 cities in America for mixed couples. And of course, the number one reason to move to Memphis is the Memphis Mafia. Yes, they're making America great again. So I called my husband. I said, hey, California's getting really, really too expensive. We don't know about the air and the water. we should really consider Memphis. And my husband says to me, are you ready to be ma'amed for the rest of your life? And this one is really difficult because I know you all say ma'am, it's a custom, a polite custom. You don't mean anything bad by it, but where I come from, we're used to ma'am being used as an insult, like ma'am, ma'am, ma'am. It sounds like a bleeding sheep. And you know, there's a reason ma'am rhymes with lamb. Ma'am, yes ma'am, no ma'am, sorry ma'am. I'm like, oh. And you know, like I said, where I come from, people use ma'am as an insult to signal like you're over the hill. One day you're a miss, and then the next day you're a ma'am. You try to stop this, or at least I have. You're just like, hey, I'd like to be called miss. I prefer miss. I still feel like a miss. And you know what? I identify as a miss. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers, and miss. Miss. But you know, the world has other ideas. The world is like, sorry, ma'am, ma'am. It's like to sir with love, to ma'am with yogurt and mint sauce. And that's when I realized there are 3 stages of life. Stage 1 is, damn, you look good. Damn, you look so good. We are all in this phase at one time or another. But most of us can't really appreciate it when we're in it because we're too self-conscious, right? And the only time we remember that, damn, we looked good is on Throwback Thursday, when someone says, damn, you used to look so hot. What happened? And you're like, indeed, what happened? I thought Asian don't raisin. What happened? Yeah, right? And what happened is we probably entered stage 2. Stage 2 is, damn, you look good for your age. Oh my God, is that a crock? What? You look good for your age. I know, the only way to win when you get told that you're in stage 2 is to lie about your age, but go way up, you know? You have to remind people, you cannot spell gold without old. Like, I'm 92, and yes, damn, I do look good for my age. And stage 3 is, damn, you need medical attention. Sad. So you want to be in stage 2 for as long as possible. And of course, during this pandemic, most of us got shoved into stage 3. You know, we couldn't go to the doctor even when you thought you had something because the hospital was no place to be, there was no PPE, there was no room. For 2 years or so, we've all had to self-medicate. It's like, yes, I'll have 2 shots of bourbon and I'll text you in the morning. And when you were confused about what you had, luckily, we had a world of information and misinformation at our fingertips. We had the internet. Like, we checked our internet, we tried to self-diagnose, and we could choose our preferred healthcare provider based on the number of tweets and retweets. You'd be like, oh my gosh, 1.5 million hits. I should trust this pillow guy with my life. Viral, virus, it's probably the same thing. Just, seriously, I want to thank all and any healthcare providers here tonight. Thank you very much for putting your lives on the line for us. You know, during the pandemic, of course, we had to form bubbles. We had to figure out who's in our bubble and who will we bubble next to, who do we trust is following the same kind of risk factors that we are calculating, social distancing, wearing the mask. And we suddenly remembered all the things that we used to take for granted. Like, for instance, before the pandemic, you know, my husband and I used to think it was a colossal waste of time eating out because we'd get that visa bill at the end of the month. We go, our eyes would pop out. We're like, ooh, so this is why we can't pay our mortgage. Ooh. But then during the pandemic, we'd realize, oh my God, the secret to a long and happy marriage is eating out. Yes. When you eat out, you get to see other people. You run into other people. You're like, hi, Bronwyn. Hi, Melissa. When you eat out, you get to talk about other things. Like, oh, yes, please tell me, what are today's specials? You get to, like, experience a healthy case of food envy. You're like, oh, yes, I'll have what she's having. You even get to complain about other things. You're like, oh, this dish is too salty. I got to send it back.
And you get to be adventurous. Oh, yes, I'll try some pizza with baby arugula on it. That sounds delicious. Yes. We did all these things that we took for granted. But at the same time, I also remembered that sometime, you go to a restaurant and it was not a place to eat, but a restaurant was a place of torture. Yeah, I know it's very confusing, especially for someone who loves to eat, but this is a tip for any of you Hollywood aspiring types. And I know it sounds like a fortune cookie proverb. When you go to a fancy restaurant with a fancy VIP in the Hollywood, only order the fancy water. I wish someone had told me this dirty little secret when I first started out in Hollywood. Because I didn't know that when I met with important Hollywood executives, I was supposed to order nothing. And if anything, only sparkling water. It was supposed to be like water. 0 calories, but sparkle. So the tip is, if you're eating, it's not a meeting. If you're eating, it's not a meeting. I didn't know this, and I ordered cheeseburger and fries, and the director looks at me like this. It's like, I'm really sorry, we're gonna have to go in another direction. You're like, what? All right, in that case, if we're gonna go in another direction, waiter, I'd like to change my order to lobster. And, but this tip, you can also use the reverse. Sometimes I found myself in a meeting. I didn't really like the direction it was going, but I had to be polite, not make waves. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. So this is when you order chicken wings. You order chicken wings with bone in. You eat with your fingers. You drip sauce all over yourself. You wear what you eat proudly, yes. And then, you did like my father taught me, yeah. Suck on the marrow, you bite on the bones, you make a little pile on a little side dish. It's a tribute to free-range chickens everywhere. This is my free-range. Trust me, this will get everybody's attention at the table. They will stop. And if they still want to work with you, this means they really, really like you. And you have the power to negotiate, like I did. I said, hey, the teacher in this pilot, I was thinking, I'd really like to name that teacher after my former English teacher, Mr. Smith. Smith? Have you looked in the mirror? You cannot name a character Mr. Smith. You must represent. You should be ashamed of yourself for making that recommendation. It's like, okay, how about Gonzalez? I know. He's like, Gonzalez Hispanic. And I go, yes, but I represent diversity for all people. Yeah, that's what we do. Anyways, I learned later that social media is great if you're obsessed with food. I would post my food photos on Instagram and Facebook, all these artistic creations. I need a release, an acceptable release for them. And that's kind of how I became the sensuous gourmet, because the next thing I learned was that everybody wanted to eat at my house. Even those Hollywood executives who would not return my phone call, suddenly they were leaving me messages and putting on the post, oh, what is this? When can I come over to eat? Oh my God, I would have loved that. I would love to make them drive 2 hours to my house. I would love to make them sit in that traffic, and I would love to say, hey, you want to eat this mouth-watering, lip-smacking dish? Well, first, I want to hear your pitch. Come on, hear me your pitch. In my house, when the food is really good, we don't talk. My father used to say, cold Chinese food is really bad. We don't talk when the food is good. But when I got married and I went to my in-laws' house, they're always talking. It's a culture shock. They talk on top of each other. They talk louder and louder. They're a very, very loud family. And it's very embarrassing when we go out. I'm ashamed to be seen with them sometimes. I know. I can't compete. So I just eat and I drink. I eat and I drink and I drink. And then, eventually, a river runs through me. I have to go to the bathroom. I'm a pee factory. So I go stand in line. And the women are all complaining about my husband's family. Oh my, can you believe what loud that family is? How entitled, they're taking up all the space. And because I don't look like them, my in-laws, they assume that because I'm quiet and I don't look like them, that I'm not with them. So, part of me is enjoying it just a tiny bit because, they're saying things I can't say and it's great material. But eventually someone will say, hey, you haven't said anything. What do you think? Do you want to complain to the maitre d' with us? I'm like, oh no, I can't go up and complain to the maitre d'. I'm married to that family. It's like, what? You're married to that family? I'm like, yeah, you see that guy in the chair over there squirming? That's my husband. She's like, congratulations. When I first got married, I hated the word husband. I just really, really hated it. I couldn't say it. It was like, I felt like I had a hairball. She's like, And, nothing rhymes with husband. I haven't found anything that rhymes, so that was my excuse. I also looked it up. I found that it's Old Norse for master of the house, and I was the house, and I just didn't like that. So, I used to introduce my husband as my ex-boyfriend. Technically, it's true. He was my ex-boyfriend. But yeah, people got so confused, I had to stop. My husband's like, that's not funny anymore. I think about food a lot. I do think about writing a lot. So it's food, writing. And I know I do want to lose my pandemic weight, my couch potato weight. And this is why I go on a diet every other day. But I can't really help it. It's genetic. We have brain cells in our stomach. I read this. We have brain cells down here. And 95% of our serotonin comes from our gut. And this makes sense because have you ever made a really bad decision on an empty stomach? Oh, yeah. I know, I'm company. I have. I remember one time I was so hungry, I walked into a P.F. Chang's. I said, I need to see a menu. And the maitre d' scurries over to me and she says, I'm sorry, miss. We don't serve authentic Chinese food. I'm like, I know, but just don't tell my relatives I ate here. The reason I think about food a lot is food is one of the things that we can control. We can kind of control what we put in our bodies. That's why we have, vegans, vegetarians, gluten-free, paleo, keto. We have a lot of choices. And when I write, I also can control like what I put on my laptop. F-U-N. I write for fun and food. But when it comes to family, we have zero options, and we can't control them. I know, I've tried. And it's hard to represent when the first person who erases you is your own mother. I know, mothers are supposed to love you unconditionally and forever. My mother, she was defective. I wish I could send her back and return her and get a new one. When I tell people that my mother was that way, people are like, oh, you should write about it. That sounds so interesting, so interesting. And that's the terrible thing about being a writer. Nobody has any empathy. You tell them, oh, I feel sick. I think I'm going to die. I got to go to the hospital. That's great material. You should write about it. Everything is great material. Something bad happened to me, great material. I did try to write about my mother, about how my mother abandoned us. She married a famous Australian painter. She told him, though, she had never been married before. And she told him she'd never had kids before. So she kind of erased us out of her life that day with that marriage. And when I wrote about it, the audience never believed a single word of it. They're like, oh my God, this could never happen. Haven't you read Amy Tan? Amy Tan says, mothers and daughters are the superglue of the universe. You're a discredit to your race. I thought, oh my God, that's such a great idea. I'm going to send my mother some Amy Tan. So I got some books by Amy Tan. I had her autographed. And I highlighted the important passages, like mother loves daughter, mother apologizes daughter profusely, mother begs for forgiveness profusely. They were all highlighted for her. And she writes me back, she goes, guess what? Thank you for the books, but guess what? I don't have time to read. And the reason I don't have time to read is we're adopting twin girls. I'm like, oh my God, from who? She goes, my brother. Yes, my uncle, her brother, had twin girls, and they don't want them. They were going to drop them off at the orphanage, like I said in the beginning of my act. They're going to drop them off, and my mother says, oh, I can save them. And so she passes off my cousins, the twins, as her own biological family. And my brother and I are friends from Ohio. And, I was telling my friends, confiding in them, I said, God, I don't know why I'm always so optimistic. Did you know that stupidity springs eternal? And then I was like, but to give me credit, things did change every time I visited my mother. The first time I visited my mother, my brother and I were friends from Ohio. And then when my husband and I visited, we were friends from New York. And then all of us became groupies from the United States. It was terrible. My mother, her famous Australian painter, he had a big, big exhibit in Dublin. And my mother invited us. She goes, bring all of you. I want all of you to come. So I read this as code. Writers, we dissect and words all the time, like, oh, that all, underline, that must mean all of us. So we go there, and we're there to support the famous painter. And a reporter notices a family resemblance. It's like, hey, is this your family? I noticed a family resemblance. And my mother says, without skipping a beat, she goes, no, these are groupies from the United States. And the reporter shoves the microphone in my face and says, do you have any comment? I thought we were friends. We've been demoted. And I know, it's so incredible, right? Who does that? So I told my friend, oh, I feel so stupid that we blew my husband's Jeopardy winnings to go to Ireland to be humiliated. They're like, oh, that's great material. That's so unusual. You should write about it. Wait, did you tell me your husband is a Jeopardy champion? See, when I tell people my husband is a 5-time Jeopardy champion, it's suddenly all about him. Oh my God, it's so annoying. How many games did he win? What was Alec Trebek like? What season it was? Super, super annoying. But I also realized, it must be so great to be married to such a smart person. Oh yeah, it's great. But anyways, I also learned it's super handy. During nasty Q&As, when people go, that girl in your play who puts up with the mother's bullshit and she keeps going for more and more? I find that very pathetic. I think that girl's a big, fat loser. Is that character autobiographical? And that father in your play who has a PhD in chemistry and then he buys a laundromat? I mean, that completely does not make sense. And I say, hey, it didn't make sense to me, but my friends told me to write about it. And then they'll say, did you know that character and your father is perpetuating an Asian American stereotype, and you've just put Asian Americans back to the 19th century? Like, oh, hey, look, here's a photo of my husband and Alec Trebek. Aren't they really, really adorable? Jeopardy can get you out of a lot of things. Anyways, sometimes people do believe me, because not everyone is so fortunate to have a mother who cares about them, who loves them. And Mother's Day is the worst. Mother's Day is coming up in a couple weeks. And I'm sure I'm going to be depressed. But luckily, or not luckily, because it's kind of a double-edged sword, I know people who believe the story because they are also motherless, or they've never had a loving mother. So often they'll reach out to me and they'll say, hey, Lucy, you want to come over for dinner? I'm like, yes, free food, free food. My father would be so proud. If it's free, it's good. I'm there. So yes, I'm coming over to your house for Mother's Day. Thank you. That's another reason why I stay in California, even though it's bad. I like to grow my own free food. In California, it changes you. You suddenly find, even though maybe you came to America for the meat, you're eating more vegetables, more greens, more kale. I'm at the curb market. I'm the lady who's always, when will the chef salad be ready? Where's the chef salad? Where's the chef salad? When I travel abroad, when I went to Germany around Christmas time, all I would ever get is like one goose leg, a mound of red cabbage, and a potato. And I said, can I have something green, bitte? And they give me 2 sprigs of parsley. One time I went to France to meet my friend, and I ordered a big salad, très grand salad. And what I got was très petite, very tiny. But I didn't want to embarrass my Parisian friend into thinking he was dining out with an ugly American. So I said, hey, does this look like a big salad to you? He said, no, there must be some mistake. So we called the waiter over, garçon, garçon. And he says, you must be from California. Yeah, one really downside, or the ugly undertow of California, is you feel this tremendous pressure to always to look young and to be thin. Thin as possible, young as possible. It's always more cardio, more exercise, more Botox. Yes, we all lie about our age. And even when we're working out on our treadmills and our elliptical, we all lie to our treadmill and our life cycle because we know the person next to us is trying to judge us and see how old and how much we weigh. And that's why I always try to run like a 30-year-old, a pregnant 30-year-old. Don't get me, this is it. Because I'm an overachiever. I am my own tiger mom. But, whenever we try to trick our body into defying gravity, it usually backfires because this is science. And so one time I was racing up and down the mountain. I was trying to beat the millennials, show them I still got it. This is pre-pandemic. And I fell. I fell on my coccyx. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to walk like this for the rest of my life. And that's when I realized, oh my God, you can be too thin. When you're too thin and you fall, you break a bone, you break your hip. My skinny ass friends who fall, they suddenly need a hip replacement. When I fall, I have a little bit of a bounce. I'm like Tigger. The most wonderful things about Tigger is we're bouncy, trouncy. We don't need hip surgery and hip replacement. So yes, if a little bit of padding, it's extra protection. Protect yourself. Eat that brisket. Do it. Now, Asian Americans are about 6% of the population, but what I found really interesting is they're 17% of the active physician workforce. So 17%. And yet, a lot of times Asian Americans were invisible, we're marginalized. We're not even invited to the table about diversity or the fight for inclusion. And it's a double-edged sword, a catch-22, because if you want to protest, sometimes that puts a target on your back. But if you stay under the radar, then you're very easily forgotten. It's like you weren't here, ever, erased. And so I've had people come to me and say, BIPOC, there's really no A in BIPOC. Are you sure you count? And you're like, yes, I count. I'm very good at math. Please don't cheat me. It's not BIPOC. But if you need an A, add an A. I mean, when I grew up, there were only 2 genders. Now there are 58. When I grew up, it was only LGBT, but now it's LGBTQIA+. But when you're BIPOC or BIPOCA, a lot of people ask you questions, and some of them are silly. Like, when there's a sports game, or do you root for the Asian American or the regular American? You're like, same thing, buddy, watch the Olympics. When they find out I'm a playwright, they'll go, hey, did you write Cats? It's like, I did write Cats, absolutely. Everybody should write Cats, because cats get a bad rap, but cats are soft, absorbent, and they bury their own shit. So you know what? I think cats are pretty wonderful, and more people should be writing about cats. They sound like the perfect soulmate, if you ask me. And then people also ask, what do you think of critical race theory? I'm like, oh my God, please, somebody give me some bourbon right now. Of course, I think that American history should include all Americans, be inclusive, that speak truth to power. But I have some advice. That word critical is triggering. I teach creative writing, and we no longer say, I'd like to give you some constructive criticism. No. We don't say, hey, here is my critique. No, what we say today is, you've got talent, you've got potential, your voice matters. I would love to give you some feedback so you can shine. Now, do you see the analogy with food? I'm going to give you feedback. I'm going to give you delicious feedback. I think, how about we give feedback race theory a little bit of a try? Brain cells in your stomach. It's really hard to represent. It's a full-time job. It's dangerous, it's hazardous, it's repetitive, it's tedious. We just saw what Ketanji Brown Jackson had to go through, right, for confirmation hearings. It was awful. It was brutal. It got ugly really fast, but she always was grace under fire. She did a smile. She answered, sir, with all respect. She was very kind. And it reminded me of my visit to the National Civil Rights Museum, which I love. What a great I was so privileged to be able to visit during my residency. But what it reminded me was a stark reminder that if we want to bend that moral arc of the universe a little bit more towards justice sooner rather than later, we are all going to have to work out. I mean, we have to start lifting some weights. And we have to buy some Kevlar. Yes, because it takes collective action. Thoughts and prayers aren't enough. I know, because that's why I married a New Yorker. I married a New Yorker for extra protection. People say, do you miss New York? Every time there's an earthquake in California, I miss New York. I know I'm going to miss Memphis. I really will. You guys get 56 inches of rain every year. So every time I get my water bill, I'm going to miss Memphis. LA only gets 16. California is now in stage 3 of water rationing. I can only shower twice a week now, Tuesdays and Saturdays. I'm ripe, but I'm organic. The average rainfall in the U.S. is 38. So Memphis gets 54 inches a year, sometimes all in one day, I've discovered. So I think the writing is on the wall. I can't wait to come back. I want to thank everyone who came here to represent tonight. I want to thank John Rash for archiving, supplying proof that I was here. I want to thank Crosstown Arts for inviting me to perform. And thank you, Memphis Mafia, from the bottom of my heart for helping me, making me feel like a wonderful guest in your home. And I don't know if I would have made it without you, so thank you. And thank you, Memphis in general, for feeding my imagination. I can't wait to come back. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Go for have a drink at the bar, and we'll see you here tomorrow at 4 o'clock for Open Studios. All right. Thank you. Thank you.